Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I would just like to reiterate the sentiments said by Joe McAlpine. Our thoughts, I'm sure everyone else is with those down in Westminster today. So here we are, less than 3 years since the once-in-a-generation referendum vote, and once again I will defend our nation with my heart and soul, as I did for in the last vote in 2014. It was during the referendum that my political fire was lit. I know there were many people like me who thought, oh, it's okay, someone else will be fighting this battle, but we needed more, and a battle it was. I didn't expect that only 917 days since we last voted that I would be standing here in this Parliament representing the 2,001,926 people who voted no. I am a Democrat, and I believe that we should respect the votes of the Scottish and British public. That's why, although I campaigned and voted to remain in the EU, I absolutely respect the votes of the 17,410,742 people who voted to leave. No, I won't be taking an intervention, thank you. And I know we've heard from the SNP benches during this debate that Scotland has been dragged, pulled, forced to leave the EU against their will. Well, we, the Scottish people who voted no back in 2014, were very much aware there was going to be a referendum in the EU, as did Nicola and her colleagues. It was in the white paper on the consequences of voting no. No, I won't, thank you. It also astounds me that we heard not once but twice from the First Minister of Scotland, once in her conference speech in 2015 and then during her Scottish Parliament election campaign, that there should be no second referendum until 2021 unless there is evidence people want it. Even John Swinney said that it would have to be strong and consistent evidence that voters support independence, and Stuart Hosey said that a second referendum would have to wait until polling showed an overwhelming majority in support of holding another referendum for 3 years. Well, Deputy Presiding Officer, we know that is not the case, with poll after poll showing no shift in momentum for Scotland to leave the United Kingdom. Presiding Officer, this isn't Scotland's choice, as so ironically titled by the Scottish Government. This is Nicola's choice. I've been on the doors and I've spoken to voters in Glasgow. I won't be taking any interventions, thank you. I will do what the Minister whose responsibility is for to secure Scotland's place in leaving Europe, and won't take any today, thank you. I was at the door in the East End of Glasgow only a month ago, and I remember saying to someone in my team at the time, I was at that door last year and the guy was SNP, but as you do, you just go and you do it anyway. When the gentleman opened the door, he said, I remember you from last year's Scottish Parliament elections when you were here, and I told you I was SNP. So I asked, what about now? And he says, well, I'll be voting for you guys this time, as only Ruth Davidson and the Scottish Conservatives can sort this mess out. Not my words, the words of a constituent of mine in the East End of Glasgow. And that's the thing. People are starting to get tired with the SNP. How many times have we heard it uttered in recent months that the SNP-led Scottish Government needs to return to its day job? How many times have people brought up the need to concentrate on the issues affecting people's everyday lives, justice, health, education? Do you know what? Berate is all you like in this chamber, but public polls are for us on this issue. A survey this week showed that Scotland put Theresa May's approval rating a full 6 percentage points higher than Scotland's First Minister, and Ruth Davidson a full 11 percentage points ahead. So how can the Scottish Government speak so confidently about having the mandate of the Scottish people? It doesn't. Presiding Officer, I'd also make a comment with regards to the Scottish Green Party's manifesto regarding a second independence referendum, which states, and I quote, in assessing public appetite for a second referendum, we will respect new kinds of citizen-led initiatives, for example, a call for a referendum signed up to by 1 million people on the electoral register. Deputy Presiding Officer, myself and my colleagues have found no evidence of such a list. Patrick Harvey's retort that 62% of Scottish people voted to stay in the EU does not equate by default to 62% of Scotland's people want to leave the UK. I am in the 62% for a start, as are a number of Scots who, when push comes to shove, would choose the UK every time. Does Patrick Harvie's argument have any credibility when the Scottish Government can't even outline a plan for rejoining the EU, never mind actually joining it? I would therefore like to remind Patrick Harvie of his TV comments, the comments on STV on the 10th of October 2015, that the public be responsible for calling a second referendum, not political parties carving a deal behind closed doors. So will the Greens keep their promise, or is this door firmly shut on them and the SNP? To finish today, I'd like to ask the SNP if they have plans in the near future to debate 2 days of parliamentary time to tackle the crisis in public services. Will there be 2 days of parliamentary time given to tackling failing education standards, which Nicola Sturgeon says is her top priority? Will there be 2 days of parliamentary time dedicated to tackling waiting times in our hospitals? And will there be 2 days of parliamentary time trying to find solutions to the problems engulfing Place Scotland?
Please, Ms Wells.
Deputy Presiding Officer, the time for a second independence referendum is not now.
I call George